When Star Wars hit the world in 1977, the summer, all the kids were talking about it, and it was just a matter of time until you were going to get to go see it. I saw Star Wars in Showcase Cinema, Cinema 4, huge theater, spectacular. It was so packed that the ushers had to sit my father and brother separately from my mother and I because they didn't have anything more than 2 seats together. But to have a movie where people would want to see it multiple times. I saw the original Star Wars in theaters 18 times before it had finally left the theaters. You have to remember that Star Wars was a blockbuster the way no movie had ever been before at that time except Jaws. It was everywhere in society. It was in the magazines. It was on television. It was in the toy store aisles. Your sheets were Star Wars sheets on your bed. So when Star Wars came along, George Lucas knew perfectly well that this stuff would make great toys because that was our way to get close to this universe. You have to remember, again, looking back at that time, there's no internet. You can't just go online and see pictures of anything you want. You can't get closer to that movie unless you've got the trading cards that you buy at the convenience mart that are like baseball cards, or unless you finally get the toys. We wanted those toys because that was the way to engage that magical universe that we'd experienced only in the theaters. They weren't just any toys. They were talismans that connected us with the magic of the Star Wars universe. And I didn't care what the toys looked like. I loved everything about them just to hold those action figures. So it was Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. To have those 4 figures, those were the first Star Wars toys I ever got. And I still remember that moment because it was just such joy. I was so happy to see them, and I could see there's going to be all these other characters coming out, everything. I couldn't wait, and I just thought they were wonderful. So I grew up with no intention of having Star Wars be part of my career. It was just something that I enjoyed, and I loved it. So it was because Star Wars was so uniquely creative that it inspired creativity in me and made me approach that in a way that I never would have for another product. I kept notebooks of all my ideas of what other creatures on Tatooine ought to be like and filled those up, but it was just for my entertainment. I didn't think of that as a career. And yet, I got to places that are wonderful in multiple areas. I worked with NASA astronauts. I was on board the radar invisible ship Sea Shadow. I was in Smithsonian secret storage with the Nazi flying wing from World War II. I was working on Star Wars movies. I was on an icebreaker in the Arctic. All of these things happened not because I had a brilliant plan from the beginning. I did not. What I did have was a willingness to engage with what spoke to me. But what I did right was that I knew what I loved, I found what I was passionate about, and I found different ways to engage it. And if I didn't have any money, I had a pencil and a piece of paper and I would draw. And that is enough. You don't have to have connections. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have special resources. If you find what you love and do something with it, use that inspiration to do whatever it inspires you to do. That is what that engagement creates opportunities and will reveal your path. So there's a lot of power in just finding what you love. I was really fortunate to run into people who were willing to take a moment to encourage me. And most people, they wouldn't even remember the things that they did for me. The staff at Burger Chef who gave me those fun meals and who took down the pieces of advertising that they were going to throw in the trash dumpster, but they saved them for the little kid who had asked. The toy store manager who got advertising pieces from Kenner Toys, and he says, "David, I've got something for you in the back." What's that going to mean? I go into the back of the store where all the storage and looks like a warehouse, and he pulls out this big cardboard box and it says Kenner. And he says, "I don't have space for this, but I thought you might have someplace you might like to use this." It was full of life-size cardboard posters of the Star Wars characters, Star Wars posters with Kenner stickers on them, little buttons that said, "May the Force be with you," and a huge poster saying, "Star Wars is here," because it was about the toys finally arriving in the toy stores. He was going to throw that away because there was no space for it. But he thought about, there's that little kid who really loves this. I'll save it for him. These were little things. There was a merchant at the Convenient on State Street, and he made a deal with me that if I bought the last pack of Star Wars cards, I could have the display box that they came in. And that was wonderful to me. That was exciting. Again, it felt like I was connected with Star Wars. It didn't have any value. He was just going to throw it away, but he would let me have it as if it was something worthwhile. Those little things. John Smith, my teacher at Scribner, saying, finish that when I was drawing a cutaway lightsaber. These were little things. It doesn't take much, but those things made my future success possible, because encouragement, you need it from somewhere. None of us can do it on our own. A little encouragement goes a very long way.